We're gonna infuse corn into the tequila, fermented blueberry syrup. Holy shit, that's refreshing. Today, for this summer, It's Always Sunny themed craft cocktail menu, we're making a tequila cocktail. We're gonna infuse corn into the tequila, and we're gonna make a fermented blueberry syrup. Now, we haven't worked with fermentation yet, but I'm gonna show you a little something here that I think is pretty cool, and we're gonna explore some new stuff today. So get ready. And for all you upstanding out there, I'm also gonna show you a cool mocktail version that you can make at home. Today's cocktail is called D's a Bird. Now, little side note, today is also my 33rd birthday. I'm gonna celebrate by filming, hanging here with y'all in the Happiness Bar, shaking up some cocktails, maybe getting a little buzz on later. We'll see where the night goes. But anyway, let's jump into the build for the D's a Bird cocktail. So we start with 1.5 ounces of corn-infused Blanco tequila, a 1/2 ounce of Genepy, which is a bittersweet gentian root liqueur, 1 ounce of lime juice, 3/4 ounces of fermented blueberry syrup. That's shaken, that's double strained, that's gonna be served over rocks and garnished with a lime wheel. And for the mocktail version, we're gonna do 1.5 ounces of lime juice, 1.5 ounces of that fermented blueberry syrup, that's shaken, that's double strained. We're gonna serve that over ice, and we're gonna top that with soda water and garnish that with a lime wheel as well. So let's jump in to the prep work for this cocktail. The tools you're gonna need today for your prep work. You're gonna need a cutting board. You're gonna need a knife. You're gonna need a citrus juicer. You're gonna need a kitchen scale or something that can weigh out grams. You're gonna need a pot. You're gonna need some sealable containers to store in. And you're also gonna need something like a mason jar to ferment your blueberries in. All right, so the first thing we're gonna start with is our fermented blueberry syrup. Now, I understand if fermenting fruit scares you, weirds you out, makes you uncomfortable. If so, that's completely fine. You can just make a regular blueberry syrup by skipping the fermentation process of this and following the rest of the steps in the syrup making process I'm about to show you. Cocktail's still gonna be great. However, if you decide to take a chance with me and ferment some blueberries, you're gonna find a whole depth of flavors in the blueberries that you're not gonna get with just the fresh blueberries. It'll have a more funky, tangy, somewhat salty flavor to these blueberries. They get really rich, and it's really delicious in the context of this cocktail. But you can do it without it. So for those of you that wanna ferment the syrup with me, hang with me on these steps. I'm gonna walk you through how to ferment the blueberries before you turn those blueberries into a syrup. I've learned the art of fermentation from the Noma Guide to Fermentation. This book is awesome. They have so many recipes for fermentation in here, including how to ferment blueberries. So I'm gonna walk you through the process on how I ferment the blueberries based on the Noma Guide to Fermentation. But if you really wanna get an in-depth overview of fermentation and really learn that process, I highly suggest picking up this book. It is so cool. They don't pay me to say this, man. I think Noma is a sick restaurant. Noma Guide to Fermentation is a fantastic book. A lot of cool things in here that you could use and bring them into the world of cocktail creation. So I'm gonna show you the process that I like to use for fermentation, straight from Noma. All right, so to make one batch of this syrup, yeah, it just started raining, guys. Hopefully you guys don't hear that. It's not too distracting. The rain and the thunder just started rolling in. Hopefully you can't hear that too much. If you do, I apologize. It's a cozy evening here. Anyway, so the lacto-fermented blueberries. That is the type of fermentation we're doing here. And what we're gonna start with is you wanna get a container, something like a mason jar. If you're gonna do a larger batch, you need bigger jars than this, but for the batch size we're doing, this is gonna be perfect. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna make sure we get a very clean mason jar. We're gonna grab our kitchen scale. We're gonna place this on our scale and zero out our scale. And we're gonna need 300 grams of blueberries that have been rinsed very well. I've already pre-rinsed mine. Make sure you rinse them very well. We don't want any extra product in there that could change the fermentation. So we're gonna weigh out 300 grams of blueberries. All right, we're gonna zero out that scale again, and we're gonna weigh out 6 grams of salt. And you gotta make sure this is uniodized salt. So not an iodized salt, uniodized. Thunder, if you can hear it. 6 grams. All right, 6 grams of uniodized salt, lightning, and the thunder, and the thunder, and the thunder. All right, what I'm gonna do, guys, I'm gonna seal this up for a second, and I'm just gonna shake this up a little bit Be gentle, you know, you don't want to like bruise or disturb the blueberries too much. I just really want to get that mixed in there. Make sure those blueberries are coated. You could mix this in a bowl. In the book, they have you mix it up in a bowl beforehand and then put it in the vessel. I think this is probably okay, so I'm gonna do it this way. This is what I did last time and it seemed to work out. Now, the next part is important. We need to weigh these blueberries down, and the reason why is because as that liquid comes out of these blueberries when it's fermenting, you want to make sure the blueberries don't float on top. You want to make sure they get weighed down. So if you have a weight or something that can fit in there, great. If not, a great technique is grab a Ziploc bag, put some water in it, seal it up, and we're going to stuff it down in there, and we'll use that as the weight. If you're worried about the Ziploc bag breaking and ruining your fermentation, you can double bag your water. So I just filled this up with a bag of water, and I'm just going to push is down in there. Hopefully I don't have too much water in the bag. Now we look good. All right, you want to make sure all that air is out of here so I can make sure I squeeze this bag down in there, and we'll just press that bag down in there. Now, next part is important. We want to make sure we cover the blueberries, but we don't want to seal them because it needs to be able to have room for the gas to release. So if you have a lid like this, I would suggest you put the top on your mason jar and you don't screw it all the way down. You just give it like 1 or 2 little tightens so it has like wiggle room, so you know there's room for the air to get out, but the cap doesn't fall off and nothing can get in. So we got everything in our jar for fermentation. The next step, guys, is patience. So you're gonna wanna let this sit on your counter for like 5 to 7 days. Now, if you have a warmer space for this to sit, like around 82 degrees, it'll probably be closer to 5 days for the fermentation is done. If your house is sitting around like somewhere around the 74 degrees Fahrenheit, you're probably gonna take the full 7 days. Although I do recommend like on day 5, 6, you know, taste the blueberry, see how you like it. If it's funky enough for you, if you want a little more flavor out of it, then let it sit a little bit longer. The other thing I say to keep an eye on is that your product is not molding. If it gets like moldy and all that, you might have to start the process over. If there's just like 1 or 2 blueberries on the very top that start to mold, I would say take out your weight, get those out of there, make sure there aren't any other moldy ones, and then put the weight back in and continue with the process. I went ahead and got this process going a week ago. Now we have a batch now to make the cocktail for you, but what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna show you the next step after the fermentation was done. So I'm gonna show you how you make the blueberry syrup with the fermented blueberries. So before we move on to that, make sure we grab some blue tape, label and date as always. That way you know when your fermentation will be done, and we'll set that aside. Now, let's say a week's gone by, your fermentation is done. Your next step, you're gonna notice a lot of liquid in your fermentation. Now, what you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna strain that liquid out, and you could save them both separately, and you could use the liquid for other recipes in the future, and you could freeze them if you don't want them to ferment further. The blueberries, however, what we're gonna do next is we're gonna grab our kitchen scale, grab a container, put that on there, zero out that scale, and we're gonna weigh out 250 grams of our fermented blueberries. And for those of you that didn't want to do the fermentation process, basically from here on the blueberry syrup process is what you'd be doing with me. So you'd also weigh out 250 grams of regular blueberries. You're gonna wanna add 250 grams of blueberries to your pot. Place the container back on that scale, zero it out, and you're gonna wanna weigh out 250 grams of sugar. 250 grams of sugar, add it to the pot. Last thing I'm gonna do is weigh out 250 grams of water. 250 grams of water, let's add that to the pot as well. Now we're gonna wanna turn our burner on to a medium-high heat. All right, so your burner's going, grab a bar spoon, something you can stir with, and just mix that sugar in. What we're looking for is we wanna bring this up to a boil, and then we wanna reduce it to a simmer for probably somewhere between 10 and 20 minutes. What we're looking for is we want to see those blueberries start to burst the outer skin, and you'll start to see the syrup really turn a dark, like purple bluish color. Now, while I'm waiting for our fermented blueberry syrup to come up to a boil, I'm going to show you how to make that corn infused tequila. So, we're going to need our cutting board, and we're going to need our knife. For every 750 milliliters of tequila, you're going to need 3 ears of corn. Now again, I went ahead and made a batch a couple of days ago, so I was ready for today. So I'm gonna make a little smaller batch right now for you. You're gonna wanna start by grabbing your 3 ears of corn. I know I have less here. I'm just giving you the full recipe, and you can make less if you wanna make less. But you wanna take the husk off, take off the husk. Get all those fibers off. All right, make sure you wash your ears of corn, and the next thing we're gonna do is you're gonna want to cut all the kernels off the corn here. Trying not to make a mess. One pile of corn. Now I'm using just a raw corn, guys. Now I like that because I think raw corn has a really bright sweetness. You could also try this recipe with a roasted corn if you wanted to roast your corn on the grill. Honestly, when I was creating this drink, I thought about that. But then I just decided on keeping the corn super bright and just fresh for the fermentation. So we have all the corn kernels cut off. I'm just gonna cut, they're hard, the cobs into some smaller pieces. Cut it into however small pieces you want. I'm only doing that so that way there's a little more surface contact and they fit into the storage container a little bit better. All right, I can see my syrup is coming to a boil real quick, so I'm just gonna give that a quick stir, and then I'm gonna reduce that heat to a simmer. And again, I'm gonna let that simmer for like 10 to 20 minutes. Once I start to see those blueberry skins burst, that's when I know it'll be ready. So getting back to the tequila infusion, I also forgot to mention, guys, you're gonna need a liquid measuring cup. Sorry, probably have one in your kitchen. So grab your liquid measuring cup, grab your Blanco tequila, and you're gonna measure out your 750 milliliters of tequila. Grab another storage container, place your corn cobs from your 3 corn on the cobs into the container, and we're just gonna scoop all these out. I'm just gonna use my hands. All these corn kernels in there. And then we're gonna pour our tequila right into the container. Now grab a lid, we're gonna seal that container up, give it a good shake, and we're gonna store that on our counter for 2 days, 48 hours. Whenever you walk by it every so often, give it a good shake. All right, now the next step on your tequila, after the 2 days that it's been infusing, all you're gonna wanna do is strain that out through a mesh sieve. Make sure you label and date that, guys. And I would say the shelf life on that one is probably up to a month, refrigerated. All right, our syrup is still going. We're not quite there yet. I'm gonna let that to continue to simmer. While I am waiting for that to simmer, I am just going to real quick cut and juice my limes. We've gone over this a ton, so I'm gonna just go real quick with it, guys. Always cutting them, juicing, hot under these lights, and double straining. Pour it through once, bada bing. Pour it through twice. Blue tape, label and date. Good for 2 days, throw it out on the 3rd day. All right, guys, and my syrup is looking good. I'm gonna go ahead and turn that off the heat and allow that to cool. And the next thing we're gonna do, guys, we're gonna strain the blueberries out of that syrup. You're gonna have a fantastic fermented blueberry syrup. All right, guys, when my syrup's cooling, before I go ahead and strain that, I'm just gonna go ahead and cut my garnishes. So, to cut lime wheels, you grab a whole lime, place it down, you cut the end off like that, you have that little round circle, and then you wanna cut roughly 1/4 inch lime wheels. Make sure you cut straight down. You don't get all bucked up looking lime wheels. All right, what we're looking for, right there. Beautiful little lime wheels. All right, guys, so our fermented blueberry syrup has cooled enough. You're gonna grab another strainer, place that over your container, and you're just gonna pour that in. Trying not to create too much of a mess, but look at that nice, rich, dark purple syrup we got out of that. All right, we got our fermented blueberry syrup strain. Let's make sure we label and date. And guys, I would say your shelf life on that is up to 2 weeks refrigerated. All right, that's it for the prep work today, guys. I got my lime juice in this cheater bottle here. I got my fermented blueberry syrup that I made last week in this cheater bottle right here. I got my corn tequila that I was making a couple days ago to make sure I had it ready for you. Notice that opaque color it picked up from the corn, from those sugars in the corn. Got my Genepy here ready to go. And I got my lime wheels cut. Let's get into making some cocktails. So this is a shaken cocktail. To start, you're gonna need our shaker tins. You're gonna need our jigger. And we're gonna need our glassware. I'm making the cocktail and the mocktail at the same time. On the left side of your screen, I'll be having the Bird cocktail, and on your right side of the screen, I'll be having the mocktail version. So, as always, we start with cheapest ingredients, the most expensive ingredients. So we're gonna go with an ounce in our cocktail and an ounce and a half of lime juice in our mocktail. Then we got 3/4 of an ounce of our fermented blueberry syrup in our cocktail and an ounce and a half of our fermented blueberry syrup in our mocktail. In our cocktail, we have a 1/2 ounce of Genepy, and in our cocktail, we have an ounce and a half of our corn infused tequila. All right, let's grab the large side of our shaker and ice both our shaker tins and our mocktail glassware. And in our cocktail rocks glass, we're gonna throw a large cube in there. Make it look all pretty. Grab the large side of our shaker tins, seal them up. And as always, we're shaking for 12 seconds. Crack both your tins. Grab both your Hawthorne and your basket strainer. First, I'm gonna strain my Bird cocktail. Beautiful color on that. Be straining my Bird mocktail. All that goodness out of there. All right, now we're gonna top our mocktail with our club soda. Grab our bar spoon to give it a little agitation, to mix it all in. And we're gonna grab 2 lime wheels for our cocktails. There you have it, guys. The Bird cocktail and the mocktail version. Let's taste. I'm gonna taste the cocktail version to start just to get a reference. The lime on the nose. I mean, the first thing that hits for me is definitely a little bit of funkiness from the blueberry. I definitely get that, like that sweetness from the corn, which is really cool. Super light, that kind of herbal note from the Genepy. Holy shit, that's refreshing. And as you can see, I need it right now, man. I am sweating under these lights. Let's try the mocktail version. Yeah, light, bubbly, refreshing. That blueberry, lime, really acidic. You also get a little bit of salinity from that fermented blueberry. Remember, we salted those blueberries to do that lactic fermentation, so that little bit of salinity kind of comes through, which is awesome. As you may know, I'm a big fan of adding saline solution to cocktails. This fermented blueberry syrup kind of kills 2 birds with 1 stone. Wow. Try the cocktail one more time. That's exciting. Oh man, there you have it, guys. The Bird cocktail and the mocktail version. I'm sweating my ass off, but I hope you all are enjoying everything. Maybe you're making these recipes along with me. Maybe you're writing them down, saving them for a later date. Either way, guys, let me know how you're liking everything. And hey, become a regular somewhere. Become a regular at your local watering hole. It's the best way to support local business and become a regular here at Happiness Bar by liking, commenting, subscribing. Hit that bell if you want notifications. We got cocktail videos coming out every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern to get you ready for the weekend. Stay happy, everyone. Woo! I'm dying, it's hot. Bird.